Madhyamanyamana Upavishat Prayam Amartya Nadyam Ato Vihaya. Okay. Ato Vihaye Mamamum Chalokam Vimarshito He Ataya Purasat Vishangri Sevam Marimanyamana Vipavishat Prayam Amartya Nadyam To Vihaye Mamamu Chalokam Vimarsito He Ataya Purastat Vishangri Sevam Madhyamanam Upavishat Prayam Amartya Nadyam. Everyone? Ato Vihaye Mamamum Chalokam Vimashito He Ataya Purastat Krishnam Grisevam Abhimanyamana Upavishat Prayam Amartya
Ato Vihaye Mamamum Chalokam Vimarshito He Ataya Purastat Krishnam Hrisevam Adhimanyamana Upavishat Prayam Amartya Nadyam.
Hare Krishna. Ato, thus. Vihaya, giving up. Imam, also. Slokam, planets. Vimarshito, all of them being judged. Heyataya, because of inferiority. Purastat, here and before. Krishangri, the lotus feet of the Lord. Shri Krishna. Sevam, transcendental loving service. Adyamanyamanam, one who thinks of the greatest of all achievements. Upavishat, sat down firmly for fasting. Amardyanadyam, on the bank of the transcendental river. The Ganges or the Yamuna. Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the banks of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. For a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material planets, even the topmost planet Brahmaloka, is as desirable as Goloka Vrindavan, the abode of Lord Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord and original personality of Godhead. The earth is one of the innumerable material planets within the universe, and there are innumerable units also within the compass of the Mahatattva. The devotees are told by the Lord and his representatives, the spiritual masters of the Acharyas, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. The devotee always desires to go back home, back to Godhead, just to become one of the associates of the Lord in the capacity of servitor, friend, parent, or conjugal lover of the Lord, either in one of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets or in Goloka Vrindavan, the planet of Lord Shri Krishna. All these planets are eternally situated in the spiritual sky, the Paravyoma, which is on the other side of the causal ocean within the Matattva. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of all of this information due to his accumulated piety and birth in a high family of devotees, Vaishnavas. Thus, he was not at all interested in the material planets. Modern scientists are very eager to reach the moon by material arrangements, but they cannot conceive of the highest planet of this universe. But a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit does not care a fig for the moon, or for that matter, of any of the material planets. So when he was assured of his death on a fixed date, he became more determined in the transcendental loving service of the Lord by completely fasting on the bank of the transcendental river Yamuna, which flows down by the capital of Hastinapur in the Delhi state. Both the Ganges and the Yamuna are Amardhya, transcendental rivers, and the Yamuna is still more sanctified for the following reasons. Om Jnanatamidandasya Jnananjana Shalakoya Chakshurun Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhisram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vidati Swam Parantikam Namashresram Manu Api Satiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasya Grajam Urupurim Matharim Gosvaratim Radha Kundam Girivaram Mahodharika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Patitikipaya Shri Gurum Tamnitosmi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tadine Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Premat Pradayate Pradipase Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gope Swakapikankanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sudhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarungascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Durga Me Pate Minantasya Sakalat Paragate Mur Swakripa Yastidanena Santa Santa. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse which says, Yasvaka parato veda jata nirveta atmavan hiri kritva harim gehat sapa yapraja sap narotama. This is speaking about Narotama. Can you guys move in a little bit more? You're in like the far left. So this verse is explaining that Narotama means the topmost human being. And this topmost human being is someone who, either by the instructions of others or through their own use of intelligence, have come to the conclusion that they should give themselves completely to Krishna. And this is significant because we can see that Maharaj Parikshit is Narottama. He's interested in becoming Krishna conscious in the last moments of his life. And we can see from the lineage which he was brought up in, his ancestors had done something similar. Arjuna, Yudhishthira, when it was time for them to wrap things up, even though they'd worked so hard to acquire that kingdom to the Battle of Kurukshetra and the whole story of Mahabharata, still at the end of it, all of that struggle, they understood was just a temporary manifestation of the Lord. And they understood that it was time for them to give themselves to Krishna. Bhishma Dev actually glorifies them. He says, Aho kashtam aho nyayam yadyudyam dharmanandana jivatam arhitaklishtam Vipradharma Chudashraya, that so many inconveniences you have undergone, which are not befitting for men of your character, but still you've overcome all of them due to the fact that you constantly took shelter of Vipra, Dharma, and Achyutya. It means Vaishnavas, principles of devotional service, and Krishna himself. This made the Pandavas successful in their life, and Bhishma Dev is glorifying them in his final moments for this. It's the first thing he says to them when he sees them. Aho kashtam aho anyayam. He's lamenting the trouble that they went through. And Maharaj Parikshit is coming in that lineage. So he understands that rather than try to quarrel with reality, he's just accepting that this is the arrangement of Krishna. So, sa pravajat sa narotamaha, that he has become a first-class human being, that yasvakas parato veta jata nirveta atmavan hridi kritva harim gehat sa pravajat sa narotama, that he has understood through his own contemplation and through the instructions which he has received from his ancestors that now is the time to give myself to Krishna. And we're seeing that Krishna consciousness is not limited to simply devotion exclusively on Krishna. Krishna consciousness is variegated and it's full of variety. And the variety of Krishna consciousness is important for us to learn how to be respectful of and develop devotion for. Because we see that because Maharaj Parikshit, he understood the value of things directly connected to Krishna, as Prabhupada says in the purport, amardya, transcendental, that which is of a similar category of energy as Krishna, directly existing within the context of the antaranga shakti of the Lord. He understands that these things are extremely potent. And so to be in proximity to them, to take shelter of them, to remember them, is favorable to the practice of Krishna consciousness. And this is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabilasha Tasunyam Jnana Karmani Anavartam Anu Kalena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktirutamam. He says, Anu Kalena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktirutamam. That Uttama Bhakti is characterized by not only to devotion to Krishna. The Acharyas explain that anything in relationship to Krishna, one should also develop devotion for. And Srila Prabhupada is bringing out in the purport that the devotees are not interested in anything within this material world which is devoid of Krishna, and specifically all these material planets. What they're interested in is Goloka Vrindavan, to be with Krishna directly. And Goloka Vrindavan manifests itself in this world through the medium of Boma Vrindavan. Vrindavan can manifest itself in 5 different ways. Goloka Vrindavan, which is the spiritual abode of Krishna, Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha, Lakshas Resu Surabira Palala Yantam, Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sampramagyo, Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Chintamani, the Chintamani Dham. This Dham is existing as the topmost attainment in the spiritual world, and this is explained systematically through the book Brihat Bhagavatam, which I recommend everyone to read. I won't go into the details of, but in that book, you're dealing with 2 classes of, you're dealing with 2 categories. The first category, which Narada Muni deals with, is the devotees. And he goes systematically through the Brahmana at Prayagraj, and then he goes to a king in South India, and then he gradually goes up to Indra, and that brings him all the way to Dwarka, and then he starts to hear about the devotion of the gopis of Vrindavan. And this is also explained in the Nectar of Instruction. Karme bhya parito hare priyataya vyaktim yayor jnaninas te vyokjnana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishtastata te vyastha pasupala pankajajastas tabyo pisa radhika Preshtattava iyam tadiya sarasitam nashayat kakriti. That of all the devotees, the greatest devotee is Srimati Radharani, and the devotees connected with Srimati Radharani. So the Brihat Bhagavatam establishes that, and then Parikshit Maharaj's mother, she says that if these devotees exist, there must be a specific place for them. And Uttara asked this question, and Maharaj Parikshit explains, yes, there is. And then he tells the story of Gopakumar. And then that brings us through various conversations full of amazing conclusions of Vaishnava Siddhanta, which Sanatana Goswami expertly composed through being absorbed in deep samadhi. And we come to the conclusion that of all the abodes, Vaikuntha Jdarito Varatrapi Rotsatsavad, Vrindaranya Mudara Pari Ramana Tatrapi Govardhana, Radha Kunda Mihapi Gokulapate, Premamrita Plavana, Kurya Asya Vivarjito Giritate, Sevam Vivekinika. The topmost abode is Sri Radhakund, along with Govardhan and the Vrindavan forest. And all of this is explained systematically in the text of Brihat Bhagavatamrita. So the first abode is Goloka Vrindavan, and in that Vrindavan is Krishna and his various associates, the cowherd boys, Krishna, gopis. And in order to attract people to that realm, Anugrahaya Bhaktanam, Manisyam Dehamachrita, Bhajati Tajasi Krita Yat Shrutva Taparobhava. Those same pastimes which take place in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna manifests in this world for the purpose of attracting his devotees, Paritranaya Sadhunam, for the purpose of bringing his devotees closer to him and giving their minds something to grab onto. Anugraha means to be pulled by, just like the planets, they're known as grahas, and they pull us in a particular direction. So Anugrahaya Bhaktanam, by displaying these pastimes of Goloka Vrindavan, which are taking place here, then devotees to the process of hearing can elevate their consciousness. Nitya Siddha Krishna Pravanade Shuddhachite Karanai Udoy. One can awaken love for Krishna through the process of hearing of these pastimes which Krishna performs in Boma Vrindavan. He manifests them, and then they're written down, and then they're distributed, and this purifies the heart of everyone who hears them. Vikriti tam brajabadur bititam to Vishnu, Sharan vito nashuna yet atavarnyenya. Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kaman hidroga asya hipatith chacharena diri. That the hidroga, the dreaded disease of the heart, this lust, which causes us to become complacent with spiritual apathy, this is eradicated through the process of hearing the pastimes which Krishna displays in Boma Vrindavan. So when Krishna wraps up his pastimes on this earthly plane, then this Boma Vrindavan, it remains here. And devotees can derive benefit from that Dham, but this Dham is different from Boma Vrindavan as it becomes Drishyamana Dham, which means it becomes covered over by the Yogamaya Shakti significantly. And anyone who goes to Vrindavan now, when you go there, what do you see? You haven't been there before, so you're exempted. But everyone else has to say something. What do you see? What's that?
The places of Krishna's pastime.
That's good. But what do most people see? I don't see Krishna's places of pastimes.
See a lot of pollution.
See a lot of pollution. You see maybe angry rickshawwalas who are coming in from Delhi. You see dust everywhere, bad sanitation. What else do we see? I mean, it's unlimited. It's an environmental disaster, actually, externally. But the difference is that this Drishyamana Dham, although it may be covered over in that way, it's still Vrindavan. So we're in the process of wrapping up our Latham Street pastimes at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. We're in the Antya Leela of the Latham Street pastimes, at least we hope. And we'll be moving on to a new temple in the future. So when we move the deities out of that building, of course the building will always mean something to us, but for those who don't know, when they go there, it will just be a school or whatever it may be. But with Vrindavan, even if it becomes covered over by appearing to be just be a hustle and bustle city with too many tourists and traffic, it's still Vrindavan. So that's why the process of hearing is extremely important in order for us to access Vrindavan. So therefore, it's recommended in order to go to Vrindavan, one should have the association of someone who carries Vrindavan within their heart. And this is the fourth kind of Vrindavan. Bhavavidad Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutta Swayam Bhivu Tirtha Kurvanti Tirtani Swatastena Gatabrata. That when one is in the association of someone who has gone beyond the external covering, like Vijay Prabhu, when he goes to Vrindavan, first thing when I ask, he say, see the pastime places of Krishna. You need to travel with such a person. You need to travel with such a person, go to these places, and take shelter. And then what happens is when you go to these places, you begin to develop a relationship with the various places in Vrindavan. When you think of places in Vrindavan, which you can remember, what's a place you remember, Pantakarna? Radharaman Temple. Have you been to Radharaman Temple with Guru Maharaj? No? I remember it was really nice. But when we travel to these different places with the devotee, and we hear from them the pastimes of Krishna, and most importantly, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, Evam Yoveti Tattvataha, we hear those pastimes in truth, not just sentimentally, then those pastimes, they begin to rub off on us. What happens is, through that process of hearing from the devotees in Vrindavan, then the mood of those places and the mood of that devotee begins to rub off on us. And then we become qualified to establish a fifth type of Vrindavan. And that's a Vrindavan outside of Vrindavan. And this is what Srila Prabhupada envisioned for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He said one of his 7 purposes of ISKCON was to establish holy places such as Vrindavan all over the world. And so with this concept in mind, he decided to establish places like New Vrindavan and New Talavan, and what's the name of the place in France? New Mayapur? Yeah. New Mayapur. And this with the idea that if devotees could cultivate the consciousness of Vrindavan, could cultivate the consciousness of Mayapur, having heard about the mood of service which takes place there, then one could become qualified to manifest the mood of that particular place through their devotional service. So the difference between Vrindavan in India, or apparently in India, and the Vrindavan which we may manifest in a place like ISKCON Silicon Valley, is that the presence of Vrindavan isn't just based on the geographical location, but it's based on the consciousness carried by the devotees. So that's why Rupa Goswami says of all the instructions which one should follow, Tanama Rupa Charitarsa Sukirtananu Smridyor Karmena Rasanama Nasina Yoja, Tis Tan Vraje Tananuragi Jananugami, Kalam Nayet Akila Mittupadesha Sadam. That of all the instructions which one should follow, the essence of all instructions is to come in the association of devotees and hear and chant about Krishna. And through doing this, Naham Tishtami Vaikunte Yoginam Hridayesiva Tatra Gayanti Madbhakta Yatra Gayanti Madbhaktaha. I think I messed that up, but anyways, when one comes into the association of devotees and hears the pastimes of Krishna, Krishna says, I become manifest there. So, Aradiyo Bhagavan Vrajeshas Tanayas Tadama Vrindavanam. When Krishna is present through the process of Krishna Kirtan and Harikatha, then you manifest Vrindavan in that place, because when one chants the holy names, it's non-different from Krishna. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said the Sarup Shakti of Krishna Kirtan is Harikatha. And that Harikatha, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed, was non-different from Srimati Radharani. Vrindavan is any place where Srimati Radharani and Krishna are performing their pastimes. So we have a responsibility of, as devotees, to manifest places of pilgrimage for devotees, for people of all over the world to come and take advantage of. And one of the ways that we can situate our consciousness in this remembrance of Vrindavan to manifest the reality of Vrindavan in any particular place that we're serving is through remembering what does the Shastra say about these places. So I wanted to recite one verse which comes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, it comes from the Chaitanya Chandroya Naktaka. But it illuminates this principle of how, through the consciousness of a devotee, the spiritual world becomes manifested. And we can memorize these verses for our purification and for our upliftment in order to manifest Vrindavan in a particular place for people to come and take shelter of. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was leaving to try to go to Vrindavan the first time, he was asked Nityananda Prabhu, where can I go to get to Vrindavan? He says, it's just this way. Or he was going, and then these cowherd boys said, it's just this way. They misdirected him. And then when he arrived at the Ganga, he said, Lord, you've already reached Vrindavan. Just see, here's the Yamuna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstasy recites the following verse: Chidanandaban para prema patri drava brahma gatri aganam lavitri jagakshema datri lavitri kriyano navapur mitraputri. This verse is glorifying the river Yamuna. It says, O river Yamuna, you are the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaj. You are the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions incurred in life. You are the creator of all auspicious things from the world. O daughter of the sun god, kindly purify us by your pious activities. So through the recitation of verses like this, in another verse, Yatarada Priya Vishnu Tasmat Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopesi Saivaika Vishnu Ayanta Vallabha. Through remembering these verses and through reciting them, speaking about them, and glorifying them in Puja Larag Pata Gaurava Bhange, carrying them on our head as our most worshipable object in a mood of deep respect and awe and reverence, and then manifesting the consciousness of service which is required in order to receive the mercy of these things, then we develop devotion not only for Krishna, but for the various things in connection to Krishna, such as Govardhan Hill, Jamuna, Sri Radhakund. All these places become very dear to us. And even if we're living outside of Vrindavan, we can be living in Vrindavan internally. And this was shown by Srila Prabhupada through his personal example very early on as a movement. If you listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures from 1966, there is a question which is asked about holy abodes. And someone asks, is there more potency there? And Srila Prabhupada says, yes, there is. And then Prabhupada starts speaking about Vrindavan, and he goes, I am always hankering after that Vrindavan, this sacred place. But I have come here out of duty. So Srila Prabhupada set the example that we may have responsibilities in the realm of preaching, in the world of Kali, in the atmosphere of Kali, but through engaging in that service to the spiritual master, engaging in that dear service to the acharyas, then Braja Vasigan Pracharaktagan, then the residents of Vrindavan become our dearest treasure. This was what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, that the only wealth of the preachers is the devotion of the residents of Vrindavan. So by following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, we should develop devotion for these various elements of Vrindavan. while simultaneously spilling gallons of blood in the expansion of the Sankirtan mission, and this will qualify us for residence of Vrindavan internally. As the verse goes, Nikapta Nivasam Dehi Govardhanantvam. My dear Govardhan, please grant me residence at your feet. So residence in Govardhan doesn't just mean physical proximity of the body, but it means proximity of the heart. Hare Krishna. I left 5 minutes intentionally for some discussion.
Thank you. Prabhu, thank you for explaining the 5 types of Vrindavan. If I recollect correctly, one is Bhaume Vrindavan, one is in
Goloka Vrindavan.
Golok Vrindavan, and one is manifest in the heart of the devotee.
Goloka Vrindavan, Bhaume Vrindavan, one in the devotee.
And one is he manifests outside externally.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the 5th one?
The covered Vrindavan of today. Drishnamana Vrindavan. This is different from the Bhaume Vrindavan, which Krishna performed pastimes in, because that's an exact replica of the Vrindavan. But when Krishna leaves this world, that Bhaume Vrindavan becomes covered over by the Yoga Maya. So one can still access that Bhaume Vrindavan, but the general public, it's inaccessible. So it's known as Drishnamana Vrindavan. It's covered.
Why do we go there if we have places which are like ISKCON of Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Why do we take time 1 month in a year to go?
Well, one is
visit that?
Srila Prabhupada specifically wanted it. And it's just the Drishnamana Vrindavan is a little bit like a glove. The hand may be covered, but still the movement of the hand is there. And when one goes to Vrindavan, one can feel how special it is. And in order to deepen our appreciation for the devotion of that place and the intensity of devotion which it takes in order to require there, that gives us a realistic understanding of the intensity of devotion we have to have here in order to manifest Vrindavan here. Because like I said, Vrindavan manifesting at ISKCON of Silicon Valley isn't just dependent upon the location. It's dependent upon the consciousness of the devotees. So in order for that consciousness to be cultivated, fortified, and crystallized, then one needs inspiration from the Dham. And through going there and taking in the vibrations of that Dham, performing devotional service in the Dham, then one becomes electrified by the potency of that place. And they carry that electric current back here, and that electrifies the local temple, which we may be residing at. So we should all make it a point to visit Dham regularly, develop a relationship with it, and hanker after Vrindavan the same way Srila Prabhupada did. Srila Prabhupada set an example of being in Vrindavan when he left his body, and he set the example of building temples in those places. He wanted an American house in Vrindavan as early as 1967. Is that it, Vijay Prabhu? As early as 1967, he wanted an American house. So Prabhupada set the example, and he wanted us to go there, and he specifically wanted us to go there in a mood of service. And through that mood of service, Ata Shri Krishna Nabadi Nabavegrahim Indriya Sevan Mukhi Jivada Swayameva Spratida. Krishna would reveal himself through the mood of service which we had cultivated being in the West, and then bringing that service attitude to the Dham, along with chanting Hare Krishna. Krishna would reveal himself in the Dham, and there would be a special affection which we develop with the places of the Dham, and we carry that affection back, and that's the strength of our preaching. That's the inspiration of our preaching, to want to go on dealing with people who are taking a vow to stay out of Vrindavan. We feel inspired to try to get them to break their vow.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hi. So in used to quoted Pakistan, Thakur, he has this like he preaches the Dritvisha Vichar. Like we know who's seen, who's the seer, and whose object that is being seen.
Yes.
So now one thing that you mentioned right now is close to Vrindavan as a state of consciousness and not just the Vrindavan as a place.
Mhm.
But the Dham is the internal potency of the Lord, it's the Samit Shakti of the Lord.
Mhm.
So how do we see it that we can manifest that kind of environment on our own because it's the internal potency of the Lord?
Hmm.
It is like different from what Bhakti-Siddhanta Thakur says, right? Like we don't chant the name of the Lord, it is the name of the Lord that chants on our tongue. That's what he was saying. Right?
Yeah.
Similarly, how do we see that the Dham, which is the internal potency of the Lord, how do we say that we can also manifest that?
By being connected with that internal potency.
Okay.
Yeah, by being connected with that internal potency and displaying the activities of that internal potency. It's not through us, but it's through the mercy of Krishna. If one offensively chants the name of Krishna, Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, if one chants the name of Krishna, then Nama Gokula Mahotsavayate, the name of Krishna is a festival of Gokula. So it's through the mercy of Krishna that these things can happen, but we can at least develop a desire for it. And we can see it's practically happened. Places like New Vrajadam in Hungary, places like Govardhan Eco Village, through the sincerity of the residents of that place to perform devotional service, which is potency, pure devotional service, Uttama Bhakti, then you can see that those places, they manifest themselves there due to the devotion of the devotees. Just like the deity, how can one say that one can manifest the deity? It's by the mercy of the deity through the prana pratishtha ceremony that the deity manifests, and then the deity becomes more revealed by the devotion which the devotees serve him with. Like we've seen pictures, I'm sure Vijay Prabhu knows through all the traveling, that you probably have seen deities get fatter and skinnier over the years. Have you seen that, Vijay Prabhu? So by the deities, they reciprocate. So in the same way, Vrindavan, Aradiyo Bhagavan Vrajeshasthanayasta Dhamma Vrindavanam. Krishna and Vrindavan are non-different. So if Vrindavan wants to reciprocate with our desire personally to manifest itself, then it can. But it's not through our own endeavor, it's through our mood of service. And that's the heart of this Drishtiya Vichar, is that one should not try to see God. Actually, I'll read a quote, which I found the other day reading that particular chapter, because Vijay Prabhu mentioned in his class, I asked him what are some principles, and he said, don't try to see God, but serve in such a way that God wants to see you. So I went on the instruction of Vijay Prabhu, and I read that chapter in Bhakti-Siddhanta Vaibhav, and I found this quote. Let's see if I can find it. The path to see God is by service-inclined subservience to the Guru, who is a transparent representative of the Parampara, and by waiting for and expecting the mercy of Krishna. So Vrindavan reveals itself in this way. Hare Krishna. Anything else, or we probably need to stop? Thank you all very, very much. Vancha kalpatarumbhischa kripasadurevascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Devavrata Prabhu